All right, you guys, we are going to go over page 203 through 228. We're getting close to the end of this book, but this one is about, I would sum it up as who to work on developing, who to look for to develop. And I think that's a huge question that people will ask is, how do I know? Like, who are my leaders? Where do I find them? Like, what am I looking for? Is it everybody? Is it just some people? And I really think that all of his points for who we're looking for were obviously spot on. Jamie or Sal, do you have anything, or do you want me to just keep going into it?
Depends how far you're going in. I have something on the first page, but other than that, if you want to open it up, go for it.
Go ahead, Jamie. Talk about your first page.
Well, I just want to mention, I think he breaks that down really well when he talks about it takes a leader to know a leader, you have to show and then grow a leader, right? And he breaks that down between recruiting and positioning, modeling and equipping, and then finally developing and empowering and measuring. So if you guys are looking at your book and can see that on page 203, I'm curious if you're willing to share in the comments if you feel like um where you feel like if you feel like you get stuck at one of those, where, or if you do all three, or what comes easier, what's more of a struggle, what spot in there do you feel like you need to grow in? 'Cause I love that he broke that down, and I think that helps us become self-aware of, okay, here I'm looking for the leader, and then I can model and show and work with a leader, and then I have to grow this leader, right? So being intentional in all of those things, I think is super important. And then I'll just quick mention on point one when he talks about recruiting and looking for those people, it's not just arbitrarily working with whoever, although I feel like we can't prejudge, right? We bring people in and we're willing to help everybody move forward in this business. But I think we can look at it as the mindset of who do we want to really pour into and give the time with? And you can do that in multiple ways. It can be by who's playing ball, but also as a leader, really looking and being intentional on the qualities that you're looking for. And that's what he mentions right there. You can't develop people that don't even have the potential, no matter how hard you work. So if you feel like you are working so hard to develop some people that are just not moving forward, because maybe they're not playing ball or they don't have the qualities or they're not wanting to really, and you want it more for them than they do, maybe we're not really taking the time to identify who has the leadership potential that you want to spend the time working with. Now, that doesn't mean you don't work with them at all or you don't help them. We can still help anybody get started and share with someone and be a part of the community. We have all kinds of people a part of this community, whether it's product users or people that are flying to the top or anywhere in between, right? And their progress doesn't necessarily, I don't think, matter in this moment per se. It's the character and the qualities that you're looking for. So are you doing that intentionally?
Yeah, I think that. Go ahead, Sal.
Well, I just want to quick add the little piece that he said nobody really understands leadership until he or she does it. And that right there, you guys, is why we do the hard things because we don't know how to develop a leader and raise up a leader and whatever, all of that leadership stuff, unless we go through it ourselves and do it ourselves. So, and on my journey up to Diamond, I had to learn and do the hard things and uncomfortable things and get comfortable with the uncomfortable because I knew if I couldn't do it myself and grow through that and do hard things, then I would never be able to develop somebody to do it either. Like I have to lead the way. I have to learn going through the hard stuff. And so again, when you have challenges arise and hard things in your business, just think of it as I am going through this for a reason. So I can help lead someone through it later on and help them and raise them up and develop them. So I think that's so important to remember.
Yeah, that is super important. You have to go through it to know how to help your people. And if you don't go through it, you might not ever learn these things. I wanted to say too, to Jamie's point, developing leaders is something different than creating a business builder or giving someone the business. Everybody gets the opportunity to show us if they're going to be a leader. Everybody gets the opportunity. They're all put in the team page. They're all offered book club. They're all offered launch parties, all of the things that are part of our systems. And I've even marked down one of the ways that, and this is on page 207, but contribution. One of the ways that I notice that someone has leadership potential right away is if they are contributing in the team page. It's like, okay, they are in, like, what are they doing? There's so many traits and things to notice just by somebody participating in the group. They're a team player, they add value, and they probably care about people, at least on some level. They want to be a part of something. That, if you have somebody doing that, that is like, okay, wow, I need to really hone in on this person here. And then back to 205, where I was going to pick up, if you want a potential leader, find someone with the traits of a good leader. And on another page, he says that good leaders, basically, they're not necessarily made, they're found. Like, finding good people is going to be key. And chemistry is the number one point. And I don't remember reading this in the book, and I don't remember reading this book at all, but I did years ago. But just from trial and error, I learned from watching and my own mistakes, you have to like your people, like really like them. And this can be hard if you are not a people person or if you are a people person, because people think they love everybody, but they really don't. Like, do you want to go shopping? I say, do you want to go bra shopping with this person? Like, is this somebody that you want to get close with? Do you want to do life with them? Do you have things in common? Not just, and this is something I hear often, like, somebody, they make me laugh. It's more than just make you laugh. Lots of people can make you laugh. And if that's how you're deciding, like, these are my people because they're making you laugh, that's not it. It has to go on a deeper level with them, and they have to fit in with the team. Does this person fit in with our team culture? And I would say that this one is really big because I have seen a lot of people get to fairly high ranks that do not fit in with the culture, and then they leave. So if you bring people in at first who are like-minded like you, that can really help you get people who stick. And then obviously character is super important. That is, how can you build a business with somebody you can't trust? I don't trust them to take their team somewhere else. I don't trust them to cross recruit from one of my other leaders. Like, you can't trust them. So it's really important to find people who have integrity, and that's how you can build rank, maintain rank, and trust that people are going to do the right thing. Trust that they're going to show up if you can't for some reason. All my kids are sick right now, and if I were to not show up at Ruby Retreat, I can trust every single one of those women. If I'm sick at home hanging over a toilet, like, my kids aren't puking, but if they were, like, I could trust these people that they're going to be able to get the job done and know that it's going to be great. Nobody's going to be floundering around not knowing what to do. That's what you want with your leaders. If your internet connection isn't working, you want somebody who's going to jump in and do the hard things. And he talks about that later on too, is real leaders are the ones that are doing the hard things. He gives us a list of what type of person is a leader, and that's it. And I will say, after doing this for however many years, over a decade, hands down, that is one of the most important things, because I have to know that I can trust people to show up when they say they're going to. Nothing worse than doing an event and you're like, where are you? You didn't invite your people. You're not doing your job. So these are basic things to look for in people. I'm sure you guys have a ton to say on all that.
Well, and like Phallin said earlier, like it's the difference between business builders and actually looking for and develop, like, working with leaders, right? So, and it's a combination. You have the you might have that chemistry, you have that someone that really you really like or have fun with, but they also have to have the character, right? You have to have, like, the combination of all this. So anyone can be the business builder and part of the community. They might just naturally, not stick around later if they really, like, aren't a part of the culture of the team, because that just naturally kind of happens, right? Phallin, what would you say? I just saw this while you were talking really quick. But what would you say? You're talking about how you have to actually like people. And I remember you saying many times, like when you first started, you didn't like people. Like you would say that, whether it's true or not, or whether you just told yourself that or not, you would say, I didn't like people and I had to change. So speak on that for a hot second for anybody that might relate to that.
What I realized was my circle of people were not my people. That's just where I was born, where I was raised, who I was around just by chance. I had not developed who I was. Maybe I was shy. Maybe I didn't want to be around high achievers or like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the deal was. But when I started doing Plexus and getting out around people, I realized I really like people. And then once I could see like who were my people, and this was like as a silver, as a gold, like who were my people? They were people who were ambitious, who had their kids on schedules, they were doing chores, they were intentional, they were reading marriage books, they were interested in cooking their own food. And then when I would sign up somebody, heaven help us, who I'm like, yeah, I'll come over to your house. I'm not super excited. A room full of snakes, not a blind open in the house. It was sheets on the windows, pitch black. And I'm like, okay, this is not my person. And I didn't feel bad about it because at first I thought I had to work with everybody and sign up everybody. And even the conversations that was like talking about no, nothing against this, but like talking about taking in stray dogs. And I'm like trying to find common ground. And I'm like, oh, I just hate this. Like, I don't want to be friends with this person, but I got to sign them up for Plexus. Like that kind of mentality. I think once you find your people and you know yourself and you know what kind of people give you energy instead of always trying to give to somebody who's not your person because you don't have that chemistry. I mean, it's almost like dating. And when I was dating, Brittany's like, dating's just like Plexus. You just got to find your people. And I was like, okay, I know what that looks like. So I can do this. So yeah, that's how it was for me with finding people.
So quick with that, on page 205, when thinking about this, you have to know who you're looking for, right? So I think it's really important to write a list of the kind of people you want. Like Phal knew exactly who she was looking for. And I know who I'm looking for. So who are you looking for? He says, if you know who you're looking for, your chance of finding them is going to go way up. Don't don't find a horse. They can't climb trees, right? If you're looking, right? So if you want a potential tree climber, you need to find a squirrel. I love that he said that. So if you want a potential leader, find somebody with traits of a leader and write down a list of the things that you want to, to work, somebody who you want to work with, somebody who has traits that you really see as leadership potential and things that you love and you can go bra shopping with, that sort of thing. That's really important to do. So I want to encourage you guys to do that.
That's a really good idea. If you're not sure, or maybe some of you look at your team, and I hear this so often from you guys, like, these aren't my people. That's okay. Work with who you have, and people change and grow too, but find other people. There is a world full of people, and the more you know yourself, and sometimes it takes going out and doing things to learn about yourself and what you love and the kind of people and what gives you energy. If you want to never work another day in your life, you better love what you're doing and you need to find what gives you energy. I can tell you that talking to all of my diamonds, they give me energy. Like I love it. It gets me excited. Brittany's writing her training for Ruby Retreat and she's like, I'm so excited. I'm pumped up. That is what you want to feel. You want to be excited about your people and who you're going to be with. And it's super important. Do you guys want to move on to page 210 or you got more on that? Okay. So equipping. I love the list, step 1 through 5 at the bottom of that page. And I wrote down handhold. You have to handhold. The largest single source of failed promotion is failure to think through and help others think through what a new job requires. And Reds are particularly bad at this. They think they signed up someone who's amazing. Maybe they have a couple traits that are better than them. And they're like, she's got it. She's got it figured out. And no, she doesn't because she doesn't know what she's doing. She's never done this before. Like she doesn't know. So just going through that, I'm going to do it. And then we're going to do it together. and then they do it on their own while you're watching. And then you have to watch them do it with somebody. So as you watch your leaders with their leaders, that's when you know that you are close to that residual income, that developing a leader, and obviously developing leaders is it's continual. It's just continue for all of us. So I really love that part. You guys want to go forward with the rest? Anybody on point 5?
We can rush through, I guess. I mean, I guess I'll just quick say the last step with the step 5 that Phallin was talking about, just make sure you continue to that. I think some people sometimes stop with you doing it. And I remember when I was first starting, like kind of needing to be intentional with, because I was learning so much from Tiffany and Phallin. So I'm taking all this in and I'm learning and doing new things. Sometimes it's easy to kind of forget, like, oh, am I passing along everything? Am I also teaching this? So sometimes some of it will come naturally and some of it you might have to be super intentional about making sure you are duplicating, what you're learning, especially when it's all new or you're in the moment of things.
The list of questions on the top of 212, I think it'd be valuable. I did this today, just thinking about your people, who you have on your team, your business builders, and going through those questions with those people in mind. Where does this person seem to be failing? Where are this person's blind spots? Because that sort of thing, you guys, and he even says that below. He's like, you're not pointing out weaknesses. You're not trying to, you're doing it to help them, right? Because I want to know from my upline and my leaders what my weaknesses are, where I can improve, how I can do this better. And that's being coachable. So just thinking about that with your people, and sharing that with them is going to make them a better leader. And sometimes we have to say hard things like that, and that's okay. So I think just thinking of those questions with your people, with your team in mind is good too.
And like Gina said, asking yourself, what do I do well? What is a struggle for me? What is a blind spot? And I think with our leaders too, so much, especially on the level of leadership as diamonds, it's like, okay, how do I help this person? Like, I feel like they're doing everything right. And you guys probably feel this with some of your people too. Like, what is your intuition telling you? Especially as women, we have a gift of having intuition. What do you feel like could be the issue? And what is sometimes leadership development is the smallest, tiniest little change. Sometimes we're looking for huge, mind blowing, this person is terrible, they need to develop this. It's not usually like that. It's usually something really small. And you guys have probably noticed this with training your kids. It's like just wording something a little bit differently, and they're happy to put their coat on to go outside instead of throwing a fit. So I think just looking for those little things and then helping develop them, knowing that they need to feel enough success in some areas. So give them an area that they're going to feel successful in while you're working on pushing them out of their comfort zone in this other area. They can't constantly feel like they're struggling. They need to feel like they're doing good at something. So making sure they're set up in that area, whether it's making a cover photo for the team page or making the graphics for an event. Like find the good in the people that you're working to develop. And then at the bottom of 212, that list right there too. So we have a couple pages of good lists that you guys definitely need to look at. All 5 of those points, reading books related to their areas of strength, and I would say their weaknesses, attending conferences, taking on challenges, regular mentoring, and practice difficult disciplines that slowly build character. All of those things. I would write down what you're working on in yourself and what you're working on with your people and what are they doing in these things. And these are ways to know that you are developing the right people, as if they're willing to do these things. If they're not willing to do that whole list, I would really question if I'd be working with them, because if they're not coachable, they will quit. And it's way better for them to quit at gold than it is at emerald. Way better.
So what Phallin was just talking about is really goes into the next couple pages there. We have to be able to empower our people. So you need to help them see what they can do. A lot of times they don't see it themselves. I certainly needed that a lot. I still do. Like it's just I know I wouldn't have done this business if I didn't have leaders above me empowering me and telling me what I'm capable of. So make sure you are telling your people and empowering them. Point those things out. And then he says that games aren't won according to on point seven they were measuring aren't won according to what the coach knows. They're won according to what the coach's players have learned. So are your people like looking at like what they can do independently? And sometimes that's encouraging them and letting them know that they are capable. Sometimes it's, you know, they maybe are leaning on you as a crutch a little bit too much. And you can tell them, listen, you know what you're doing. You know these answers, or you've done this before, or you can totally do this on your own now. You've done it with me. Like sometimes it's pushing them out of the nest a little bit and letting them know that they're great and they're going to do fantastic. So, don't let someone, I guess, use you as your crutch too long. If you see greatness in them and you need to just help them take those next steps forward so that they can have the independence. And that is where you're going to have that, thriving in terms of creating leaders because they are, like Phallin said, independent without you, right? And then obviously that being duplicated.
And that just takes so much wisdom too. Like, okay, I can sense that this person wants some independence, but they are not ready for their full independence. They're not adults yet. They're not jewels or they're not diamonds. So how can I help them have some sort of independence? And he talks about that at the very end of this section, just not micromanaging basically, but you kind of have to. Otherwise, everything's going to go run amok. So having that wisdom and discretion of like, how much is too much and how much do I hold their hand? How much do I let them soar? And then I love on 214, he says, everyone works better with deadlines and everyone works better when they have goals. So holding them accountable is not mean or bad. It's a good thing. And then into the next section, you guys ready to go to page 216? Okay. So he says you put in a lot of hours, sometimes years, months, sometimes decades to develop people into good leaders. And it is not an immediate thing. So if you don't have people or you're like, oh my gosh, my leaders, what leaders? Like, that's okay. And that is totally normal. It takes time and very much being intentional. Yeah. And he says you got to lead for others and not yourself. If you're just like, I need people to follow me so I can be diamond, or if you think often like, this person is going to get me to diamonds instead of this person is going to be a diamond, that is a pretty good indicator of where your head is. And I've been on both sides, so I know. All right. You guys got anything for that?
One one thing, I'll just move on to the next page there. I thought was super empowering and also like the charge of a leader. That's why I wrote down at the bottom of 217 is he mentions, look at the people closest to you. What is the caliber? Who do you have around you? Is it incredible people? That's an accurate picture of yourself as well, right? So I thought that was just super empowering to also look inward and be like, okay, do I need to work more on myself so that I can best help other people and bring other people up? In looking at that as a lifelong journey, and he mentions that later in this chapter too, in terms of this being a lifelong, journey of purpose, not just a destination here. And what do I need to do I don't know, it gets me excited to think, okay, how do I need to grow myself more and do better so that I can bring in, more caliber people and just have that circle around me of thriving leaders, because that's going to make me better. But I also feel responsible to do my best, in terms of helping others in that sense. So I thought that was important and hopefully empowering for you guys, to take ownership of that too.
I wanted to say something really quick. Jamie and I were talking about this just through walking through the chapters or these pages. And what about if you have a level one whose leadership level might be down here and they sign up somebody who's like got this capacity up here? Taprooting is so key because people are not going to all be on the same level. If you have a level one, and this takes wisdom on how to handle the situation usually, but if you have a level one who's not quite there yet and they sign up a rock star, or maybe they're new. This actually happened with Jamie, Sue, Sal when they signed up. Tiffany was brand new and I knew what I was doing. And she was just like, my team is exploding. And I just jumped in and started working with them to develop them. And then at some point, they had it like, and then I work with Jamie mostly now, and they just run their thing on their own. So taprooting can create really strong leaders if you see a lot of potential. Do not rely on your level one to lead them, to turn them into a leader if they have no capacity or even desire to be able to do that. A lot of people can just fall to the wayside if you're not intentional with that. All right, this next section, it kind of went into an overview for level 5 leadership, right?
Yeah, like prepping it for moving into level 5.
Yeah. You guys got anything on that? I wanted to say on page 223, we live in a needy world. And this, I love this. The bottom of this, did anybody else think this was so good? We live in a very needy world. If you often ask yourself, how do we meet so many needs? And this is the way my brain was just like wired to think. How do we meet so many needs? Then realize that the greatest needs will never be met until we equip leaders who can work to meet those needs. This is one of the reasons I train leaders. I believe it is a cause worthy of a lifetime commitment because when we're dead and when we're gone, that's what's left is who we've developed, who we've trained, who we've poured into to grow the next generation. And it's the same with our Plexus businesses. Like when grandma diamonds are over here, and that's what it feels like sometimes when you've been a diamond for a while. These are like children. Like these are not like our children, but like they're our whatever the word is. I don't know. Like the people who are going to carry on and do what we've done, but you're not going to get that if you don't develop leaders. So yeah, it is work and it is racking your brain on how to help a big group of people, but it's so, so worth it. And I just really love that paragraph there. Yes, your legacy. Thank you, Annie. That's what I'm trying to say.
I love that too. And I think that Val is like a charge from the Lord as well as Christians in a sinful, hard world. I don't know if you guys know this, but John Maxwell has an entire organization aside from kind of his leadership one called Equip, I believe it is. And it's a Christian organization that he goes all over the world and empowers leaders in a Christian way. It's very biblical and all of that. And I actually am reading his new book, Jesus, the High Road Leader. It's John Maxwell's newest book. It's amazing. And so I think, that's part of our calling in Christ too, is to be that in the world. And what a better way than to develop leaders who love him, who have, we always say, we need more people to have good money, more money, kingdom money, right? To do good things and further his kingdom. So I think thinking about it in that way, I was just pondering that today when I was reading it too, like this is a charge that we have to go forth and be better people, equip better people for his kingdom and just to be good, because we all know the world is scary and evil and all the things. So
I think when, in this business, you're going to have times that it's not all easy, right? Like there's days where it's hard. Life is hard. I mean, apart from this business, life is hard. Like I was just talking about this with another leader, and it was, You like, if you're raising small children, you're in a busy season of life. If you're like working full time, you're in a busy, like everyone's has life happen, let alone you have this business that you are growing. And growing a business shouldn't be just a snap of your fingers. It's work, right? We have to develop ourselves, we have to develop people. But as he says in here, with it becoming a lifestyle, with it transitioning from chasing a position of success to pursuing a role of significance, then at the end of the day, the hard days, or, maybe the growth not happening in the timeline you necessarily want, or whatever it is, it's not just about the position. It's about the role of significance that you have, and what this allows us to do, like Sal was talking about, like Phallin was talking about, in terms of who we can impact. And when it becomes not just about us and the impact that we can have on other people, then it's not just about whether we have a good or bad day with this business. It's about that we're pursuing this role of significance and we're impacting other people along the way. I mean, how incredible is that? How incredible is that to be, like Sal was talking about, like having this being an impact on the kingdom and just everything else. So, I hope that gives passion and excitement in what you do, even when it's not always easy, or even when it's hard. Remind yourself what you are really doing this for in terms of a larger picture, and not just this day or this month or even this year. That there's so much more that you're a part of with the impact with this.
Yeah, that that is why I love what we get to do here. And I wanted to say, I want to quickly, before we take questions, go through page 224 and 225 here. Just a guide through growing yourself through level 4 leadership. Like, even if you're like, okay, I'm still a level 2 leader, it doesn't matter. You can still be working on traits of level 4 leadership right now, today. And somewhere in here, he was talking about how he told the kid to come back to get the candy 3 days later, because then he could, or whatever, he could tell the kid to not eat the candy because he wasn't eating the candy anymore. You guys, your team is watching more than you think. And I can literally look like, here's a team, here's a team, here's a team based on all of my leaders. And their people are doing exactly what that top leader is doing or not doing. It's really interesting. Like, not show up, here's a whole leg. Not do this, here's a whole leg. Or do this, and here's what they're all doing. Do that, and here's what they're all doing. Like, that's how it works. This is leadership, and people are following and they are watching. And even if you are the only one here, maybe you have 100 people in your downline and you're still showing up and they are not showing up, they will eventually keep showing up even when no one is following. Work on getting them to follow you and use these things that were in this chapter. A lot of things in this chapter and the last few weeks, obviously, would really help with getting people to follow you. But I love where he says, few things are worse than a teacher who is unteachable. I love that I see you guys still working and growing. Jamie and I were like, this is so good. Like, we have a chat, me, Sal, and Jamie were like, this is really great. And how do we apply this? And I'm still struggling with this, stuff like that. And then number 2 and number 3 were the key things that we hadn't talked about yet, but deciding people are worth the effort. I will hear so often, and these aren't even red type A personalities, but just like, they don't want to pour into people. Like, they are worried it might not be worth it. And people are always worth it. Even if you don't get what you want out of it, people are always worth it. And then number 3, something else I see, just work through your insecurities. Leaders who are afraid of looking bad or being replaced rarely develop leaders because, number 1, they're afraid of people doing better than them. And I see this pretty often. Or they're afraid of failing or not doing a good job, or they're like, oh, I'm not good at that. That's Jamie, Sal, and I. We definitely like, all right, we'll do it. Not necessarily something we're great at, but we can work on it. But here we are. We'll do it. And that is the key of what you need to develop in yourself and in the people that you're working with. You guys have anything else? You want to take questions? Go ahead, Sal.
I just want a quick add at the very end on 226. You guys, with anything, we can relate this to anything in our lives. And we've read books on this, habits, daily activity, that sort of thing. If it is not happening daily, then I mean, it has to be, you have to be consistent with all of this. Just like, I went through a little weight loss, getting healthy journey just like a year and a half ago and worked every single day. I was working out, I was watching what I eating, and it took, a year or whatever, 7 months, a year. And I had drastic results because I was consistent every single day. I didn't stop, I didn't miss a day doing it, right? So with anything, including leadership development, including getting better at this business, including you have to do it every day. You have to develop new habits. You have to be disciplined and intentional with your work, right? No one ever got good at something they seldom practiced. Boom, right? In order to get good at it, you have to be consistent and do it and put yourself out there every single day. Okay. So I just wanted to remind you guys that something I have to work on too with my leadership and all of that, but it really is, that is where you see the big results in the future, is the daily consistent activity.
We can raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah, he talked about that. Like you have to do the hard things and be willing to do the hard things. And that's part of knowing if you have someone who you can develop into a leader. All right, Justina, go ahead.
So my question is just more, what would you ladies say are your biggest tips in trying to keep that consistency when you can't always? And what I mean by that is like, I know you guys know I have some crazy health things going on right now. There's days like where I will lose my vision. It's like so blurry, I can't see my phone. And so I like literally can not respond to messages or do whatever. And then on the good days, I'm doing extra work, and kind of like making up for it per se. But I think I've been struggling a little bit in my mindset around consistency and like kind of feeling guilty almost for how my business is growing when I'm like, if I could only do it every day, And so, yeah, maybe it's just me, but I'm curious what you guys would say.
Usually when people will talk about it that way, they're talking mostly about like the recruits and joins coming in. I would guess that's what you're feeling maybe bad about. You can talk to the same amount of people all day on Friday instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Totally can do that. I remember when I was really sick 2 years ago, and I'd be like, all right, ladies, who wants to talk today? Like I can talk without gagging. We can talk. And I would just get everybody on who was able to. And then if you're not feeling good, you can just not use your eyes, listen to a podcast. Like, okay, it's my podcast day. I'm going to do a lot of listening because tomorrow I'm going to do a lot of talking. I think that's still consistent. I think you can consistently work in a different way. Like, here's 5 key tasks I need to do every week. When I have a bad day, I'm just not doing the one that requires seeing or thinking or talking on that day, but I can swap it and I can do this on that day, listening to training. So that's what I would do. Don't feel like you can still consistently work without consistently having the same hours every day.
So I've been doing that with like reach outs and stuff goals, but I guess I hadn't thought of it for all of the things. So I really like that. Like today I'll just like listen to trainings or a podcast or whatever. And so yeah, that's better because I was like, like what about all the things? And I don't know, like I said, I guess for some reason I was in my head, I'm like, you have to do all the things every day rather than like some days of just this and some days of just that. And that's been a hard transition for me, I think. So
We talked about this at one point. I think that for new people, they need to do the same thing every day. Do your reach outs, do your follow ups, do your posting. And then I think for people that are closer to Ruby, like you are, then yeah, you know what needs to get done. You make sure you plan accordingly and you do those things. Even getting on the phone. If you can't see, get on the phone and talk too. Who else?
Well, number 9 on page 288, take responsibility for energizing others. When I read that first, I thought it went to motivated, like motivate others. Now it talks about, they need to be self-motivated. So what are your best tips to energize people? I know we're supposed to be excited. I love that. And I've been working on that with voice messages instead of just texting and being excited in my voice messages. What other things would you do to energize versus motivate?
I think doing things with people is sometimes energizing, or even asking them what energizes you. Sometimes it's different for each person. Sometimes and I've asked that recently to people as well, like of what you do in this business, like what gives you energy, what brings you joy, what do you love, and that's different for each person. So if you kind of know how someone ticks and what they appreciate, what they love, what they find joy in, then you can kind of lean into some of those things, and maybe help them find and develop their strengths in those areas and lean into those more. You can speak their language a little bit more when you're speaking with them. Maybe they love to get on the phone and chat with you every so often. Maybe the phone drains them, like everyone's a little different too. So I think that can be helpful.
He gives an example of a been there, done that mentality versus been there, love that. Love that way of thinking. That way of thinking would be, yep, I already did that. I definitely hear it. Like that's not energizing to people. If you're like, yep, okay, I did that 2 years ago. Versus, yes, that's so exciting. I love doing events. Here's what I'm doing. Or here's something we should do together. And I think looking at what energizes you, while it's true that the people you develop need to be so motivated, it's also true that you create the energy and inspire others. I think that helping people with goal setting, helping people reach goals, looking at them like, okay, she's been doing this for 5 years and she still doesn't have any leaders under her. That must be really draining to try and work your business that way. Let's try to figure out how to help her get leaders. Like that would energize somebody. Having local team events, getting together with other Plexus people can energize people. I think discussing books like this, like sending a picture, unless you're sending it to your husband, it might not energize him quite the same way. But if it's a Plexus person, I'm just like, you can read it. I don't expect a response. But I think just connecting with them on some sort of common ground, and Plexus is a great common ground that you can have. I really take note of people who are good at this, like people who befriend me and they ask questions. That energizes me because I can have the opportunity to add value. They send me like a picture of the new piglets that were just born. Like, so they're bringing me into their life. And it's not necessarily that I care about the pigs that were born, but I care about them, and that's exciting to them. So I think just figuring out how you can connect and relate to someone energizes them. Um, yeah.
I was going to say just practically, in a practical way, I thinking of myself and what brings me energy and gives me energy is definitely in-person stuff. Like just being with someone and feeling their energy. You can't really feel that over messenger, a text or words or whatever. Even on the phone, talking on the phone, or like you said, Jer, voice messaging and stuff, that can bring way more energy than a simple text written out. And so I think if you ever have an opportunity to meet with people in person, potentials, team members, even Plexus as a whole, convention, think about the energy at convention and events. We're going to experience that at Ruby Retreat, some of us this week, that just brings the energy. And I think then we're motivated. I get motivated by that, right? I get motivated when I'm around energetic people that bring the energy. And so I think they're kind of one and the same a little bit. I know they are a little different meanings, but I think you can't get motivated without some energy. I feel like maybe. So in-person stuff, I think, is really crucial.
I do think, I mean, I think when I talk to either my leaders or, Phallin, like if she's excited about something or has vision on something or is, whatever, like that brings me energy too. So how you have your conversations, kind of like Justina just said in the chat, like how Leah says, hey, like some little things like that. If you are excited, genuinely excited to talk to your people, and it's not just even necessarily talking, sometimes it's collaborating together and it's, like bringing an idea to the table and, hey, let's talk about this. And if you are excited about something, then that that energy will feed to someone else. So if you inversely are not very excited and are just kind of going through the motions and doing whatever, and that also will relay, right? So finding the things maybe that's going to excite you first before you even connect with some of your people sometimes. So you aren't going in just kind of mundane and checking the boxes, because people will feed off of you as well. And I know I certainly can feed off of my people for sure.
Somebody who's taking action is energizing for sure. And I think that's the majority of what you guys are saying. Like somebody who's doing or going or has an idea or something that we can do. What's draining is somebody who needs something. They only reach out when they want something, or somebody's in trouble. I think looking at those kind of things too, like what drains people. And I guess you guys aren't doing those things, but just knowing like, all right, that's draining, or getting off the phone with someone. Even negativity can be draining, which is probably something that I struggle with. Like, I feel like I'm always like, here's what's going wrong in my life today. And poor Jamie's the only one who's always like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, don't even ask. So whatever. She just opens the door wide open. I probably drained
You would say that a lot too. You're like, you always ask me how it's going. and then you say stuff.
I tried to say you don't want to know and then move on. And then I think that energizing, just, yeah, look at what energizes you, really. And then go do the same.
Totally. And I think, Jared, this is such a good topic and question, because you can go so many ways with this, but I was just thinking too about how the way you say something, the way you speak about something in anything in life, with your children, with your spouse, with your team, with your potentials, you have the ability to set the tone for how the entire conversation is going to go. So coming in with, like Leah, they're talking about Leah in the comments here, right? She comes in with this energy of, big plans, and it's exciting, and everybody knows that about her. And she's just joyful, right? She's cheerful. Everybody loves her. And so that is so amazing, because she also has the choice to come in and set the tone for it to be completely different. And she doesn't have to be joyful every day, or right. And we have that choice. And so, I mean, this is such a silly example, but even when I make something for supper and I'm like, yeah, this isn't really good. I don't really like this. I think it's just kind of gross. And I'm like, my kids are going to think this is gross, but they come in the door, they're ready to eat supper. I'm like, I made this new recipe and it is delicious. I took a bite and I love it. And it literally, like, they're like, that was really good, Mom. You know what I mean? Like, you have the ability to kind of set the tone and kind of like shift their mind or change their mind, or train their mind to be like, oh, so that's just, I do it all the time. Not that I make bad meals all the time. I'm not saying that, but you can set the tone, and you can, like, if one of my kids is doing something and they don't want to share, or they're going to go share that it's bad, the other kid, I'm like, no, don't share that, because they will think that, even though you think that, they might not think that, but you're giving them that kind of just sense already by saying it. You're prejudging the whatever. I don't know if I explained that right, but I'm just saying in any situation, with potentials or whatever, just think about your tone. You have the opportunity to just come in and just be fully energetic and excited and set the tone for the whole conversation just by how you speak and the energy you have. And even if you're not feeling it, you just got to do it anyway. So
I'm going to use this opportunity to slide right into how this is so important for events, for talking to your downline, for sidelines. If you go to Ruby Retreat, you go to a convention, if you're rooming with people, and if you are complaining or pointing out the negative things or talking about like just down things in your business and how it's not going how you want it to go or anything, all of that is affecting the tone and the posture. And you have the ability to, just like Sal just said, in terms of impact on how someone perceives a meal, as trivial as that sounds, but think about how big that is for how you can impact someone's experience at an event, especially if you're spending time with that person. And you can either help have that person have a great experience and you learn and grow together and you're thriving and you have great things happening, or you're bringing someone down. If you're not adding value, you're subtracting. And if you are, anywhere that's neutral or worse, it's going to have probably a not great effect. So this comes into play so much when we talk about events in person and all the things. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that because y'all are leaders on this call. So please take that charge seriously when you're at places with sidelines, downlines, all that, because that is really, really great opportunity for you to add value as a leader.
Yes. So good.
Yeah, we've had, especially when I first started, like super strict, no negativity at all. Like, don't even talk if you lost 5 points. Like, that is how much we wanted to create a culture of positivity and moving forward. And it's kind of funny, Sal. I love your example. I just could not help but laugh because one of my sons came to me and he's like, Mom, I know what you're trying to do to me right now. And I'm like, does it work? And he said, yeah, it does. I'm like, even though you know what I'm trying to do, it still works. He said, yeah.
Exactly.
So funny. It's true. Even like if I'm in a mood and my husband will come in and get a mood, but it's like the Bible says, like how to shut down someone's anger is a gentle answer. And I think that just shows how much control we have over a situation. Like if I'm moody and stressed and hate my life and he comes in and a couple sentences and he's super positive and optimistic and suddenly I'm okay. Like I can get up, I can go do something. I'm not down in despair. So I think knowing that you can give someone energy just by your conversations with people and bringing them into a culture that has energy is huge. Ruby Retreat, if you can get people there to Ruby Retreat, for real. You could probably, if you ever need anything from me, you could probably convince me to do it after a Plexus event because I'm super excited. And that's what I was going to say too. If you need to give people energy, things that energize most people in this industry, even if they don't want to do a team call or a training or go live in the gut health group, getting them somewhere where someone is going to feed them positivity and tell them that they were amazing. Literally, even one comment of that was so helpful, that will energize most people. That's one of the biggest energizers that I see. I also see when they get joins. So if you can help them get joins, and in particular business builders, that's going to help energize them because nothing's more exciting than a working person who gets a join and you didn't have to do anything to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, ladies? We probably don't have time for another question.
All good for me.
This was a good convo. I loved it.
It was good. Great question, Geraldine. Really good, you guys. All right. We'll be seeing most of you, I think, in a few days. So super excited. And we will see you guys later.